Play the music. Play the music. Welcome to the Fairly Odd Co-Parents. I'm Nessa.
And I am Ronnie.
And welcome to our next episode. Whoop, whoop. What is this, episode 5?
Woo woo, let's go. Yes?
Yeah, episode 5. Yes, it's episode 5. And we are the Fairly Odd Co-Parents. Thank you guys for tuning back in with us. We are so excited to be here with you. In this episode, we're going to be talking about healing and going into our co-parenting coaching, and it's going to be a great educational session. But first, let's hear our dad joke of the week.
Dad joke of the week. Burr, burr, burr.
Where's your like soundboard, dude? Like, you're failing.
Yeah, I got different stuff in here I got to play around with.
You got to be committed to doing it, though. Like, commit. I'm going to do it, and then you got to do it.
All right. Yeah, let's get the dad joke going.
All right, dad joke.
You ready?
Let's hear it. Yeah.
What does an ape use to enter its home?
A door.
A monkey.
Nice.
What does a tennis shoe use to enter a door?
There's a tennis shoe used to enter a door. I don't know.
A Nike. Okay, last one.
You came up with
pretty
these
bad.
Oh my god, they're so bad. They're such.
Okay, what do you take away from a drunk before he starts driving?
His keys.
His whiskeys.
Oh man.
Oh man, wrong one.
Yep, you're bad.
Thank
you. Nice. Good job. All right. Well, way to go. That was nice. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a 3-banger.
Boom, boom. Good job. So we're moving on to our parent story of the week. And this week we have a new parent story of the week from one of our listeners, and is a very special guest that's going to be on our podcast on this episode. So our guest speaker for this episode is the third leg in our tripod, Eduardo, who is my husband and a co-parent of our trio here. Eduardo is a licensed clinical social worker who has been practicing for 10 years. We own a mental health practice where we serve all kinds of clients with all kinds of mental health issues. We also have case management, and we also do medication management. And so we really try to support our community in that way. Eduardo is also a divorced parent. He's been divorced since 2017 with 2 children, a boy who is 8 and a girl who is 13. And Eduardo has gotten the opportunity to be part of our co-parent team, and he is also part of a different aspect, a different experience of being a co-parent with his ex-wife. And so we're going to be bringing in Eduardo and listening to his co-parent story of the week.
Mm-hmm. So the parent story that comes to mind is the first time that I got to spend one-on-one time with the boys, particularly with Armani and Sebastian. So it was around August or early September of 2020. Nessa was a teacher. She was they were still doing virtual teaching, and I was still not fully present at the hospital. We were still doing a lot of telework from the hospital. And so I got to work from home, and I knew that Nessa was going to be teaching, and Sebastian was 3, and Monty was 5. So I knew that Monty had a lot of
6.
experience under his belt, and Sebastian was still very little. And so it occurred to me to, offer support to Nessa, and at least during the first few hours of the day, while she got, to know her class and all those other things. And I really didn't come prepared. I hadn't spent any one-on-one time with either one of them, let alone together. And so I really didn't know what that was going to be like. And all I knew, it was my job to keep them out of frame, out of Nessa's camera frame, and if possible, try to keep them out of the microphone. And so we got to play. I got to entertain them. I got to play games in the room. And any crisis, we got to figure it out between the 3 of us: a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then like a 35-year-old that really was just getting to know them. So there was a lot of horsey riding. And anytime something happened to Sebastian, I would turn to Monty and I would ask him, what do I do? Like, what does he need? Because I couldn't really understand him much. And he knew his personality, and Monty was always very grounded, and he would pretty much either address it himself, or he would let me know what Sebastian needed. And then a couple times, he got out of the room and like ran into Nessa, and she was able to handle it and redirect him. And I don't know how. Oh yeah, your mom showed up at like noon for like backup, and she came in, and I was like, "Hey, I got this. I don't need you." She was like, "No, I'm here to help you," and I was like, "I'm here to help her. Like, I don't need help. She needs help." And but your mom, I don't know what else she did. Maybe she made lunch or something.
I think she cooked and cleaned.
Yeah.
Oh, you had
Yeah.
a you had
And then she and I kind of
you had
touched
a
base,
team.
and
I did. I was a teacher with 2
That's
small
awesome.
children in
yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
Oh
And
gosh,
so
COVID.
yeah, I'd say that was fun. It was the first time that I got to. And their little personalities came up right away. Right, Sebastian
Yeah.
was all about play. He was very comfortable. He was ready to jump and laugh. And Monty was ready to help. He was also ready to. In a way, he was almost like also protecting his brother and kind of keeping an eye for Nessa. And so
Yeah.
he was just very watchful. He would play, but he would always kind of keep an eye on us. And then as the afternoon went on, he got warmer, kind of let his guard down, and then he began to roughhouse and play with us. So, um, yeah, that's obviously one of my first memories with the boys, and one of my favorite. And I knew that I wasn't necessarily going to have all the answers in terms of how to like be with Sebastian and be with Monty, and they were each gonna teach me, and we were gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
No other way around it. We were gonna figure it out,
And you did. And you did. We're still learning. So
and I continue to. Yeah, I continue to figure them out.
we're still learning. Yeah. So, no, I remember that day very well. And I remember I was so appreciative that my boyfriend, who, we were still like pretty early on, was ready to like step into that role of support with me. And so I know for me and my family that you got a lot of brownie points for that. So good job. So thanks so much for sharing that co-parent story of the week. And so let's get into our episode, right? So this episode is going to be our module 1, which is our co-parenting sessions. Junior and I are offering co-parenting sessions for co-parents, for single parents, or just parents in general. And we have been approached by several people, and so eventually we started brainstorming and was like, we can totally help our community. Let's help others get to where we are today. And it doesn't have to look exactly what Junior and I do, but helping others into being more amicable is something that we are both pretty passionate about. And so we thought getting to look into what those sessions would look like and working through some of the things that you want to work through. You can work through them just listening to our podcast. And if you decide you want to delve deeper into them, contact us. Let us know that you're interested in some coaching sessions, and we can start working with you and your co-parent, or just you and your family. And
Yeah,
so,
I just have a couple of things to say with that. I'm
yeah.
super excited about this because I think that we have some pretty great takeaways. Um, Not only, and I mean, obviously, you guys heard kind of our story, and there was some takeaways we took, we explained with that. But now we get to kind of really kind of dive into the specific things, and we're only going to talk about a few of them. Obviously, if you were doing, coaching with us, we would get deeper into it. We would talk about more tools than what we're offering on the podcast. But at least these episodes, these next few modules, will give you something to work off of.
Mm,
So with that being said, let's get into module 1,
yeah. So
acknowledging
March
the hurt
and allowing
and
yourself
allowing
to
yourself
heal.
to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. So our module is about first step, and in any kind of grieving process, and any kind of healing process, and any kind of growth process, there are steps that you get to move toward. And in almost every therapeutic process, in grieving process or growing process, you get to acknowledge that there is an issue, acknowledge that there is something going on. And so in our coaching sessions, we're not necessarily saying that, like you're the issue or there's an issue here, but you do get to acknowledge that there was some sort of hurt that occurred.
Yeah, so
Excuse
like
me.
one of the big things that we really want to kind of touch on with being able to heal is like what is still hurting. Like you, and this is upon you to really reflect on what is it in your relationship that is still burdening you? What are the events that are still causing you resentment or that you're holding a grudge on? Like, what are those things that are still affecting you and that can be debilitating, and then can cause emotional reactions too, even though they may have occurred years ago, things that
Right,
could have happened years and years and years ago, and you're still being affected by them. So those are the things that we really want to kind of hit on. And in a couple of our episodes, we spoke about it for ourselves, how we were able to acknowledge them and heal from it and move past it to where it doesn't hold us back anymore with each other. It made us
right,
better.
right.
So I think one of the first tools that we will discuss will be shifting out of victim.
Mm.
Um, and if you would like to go into what that means.
Yeah. So one of the biggest struggles that divorced parents, broken up parents, or disgruntled parents go through is having a mentality of I'm a victim. Excuse me. So what ends up happening is, even in arguments, even in marriages, in relationships, a lot of disgruntled parents, or a disgruntled person feels as though, like, everything's happening to me, people are doing things to me, and we get to point fingers, right? We get to place the blame on others, and we don't get to take responsibility for the things that we have done. And so in every situation, there gets to be responsibility taken on both sides. If I go and get hit in the face at HEB, I I contributed to that altercation in some way, right? I antagonized them. I gave the wrong perception. There was something that I chose into, And that's the area that I get to take responsibility for. Did I deserve to get hit in the face? No. Did I deserve to be attacked at an HEB? That's not what we're saying at all. But there is a level of responsibility that gets to happen on both sides. And so you can either allow yourself to fall victim to your circumstances, and or you can take control of your situation, and that's where the shifting out of victim gets to happen. And so when you do get to take control in your position, you shift your position of being more responsible in your life. And so this is a this is where you get to decide, and you can always decide to do something different, and you get to, you know, get back into the driver's seat, if you will, and take ownership of your situation. And eventually you're going to see that you're going to start to see more fulfillment and have more ownership in your life as well, because how we do some things is how we do everything, right? And so one of the examples that I teach with our children is whenever we see something is broken, like, who did this? And right away, not me, not me, not me. I didn't do it. He did. I think it was him. You know, like everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. Why? Because nobody wants to take responsibility for what happened. Nobody wants to get in trouble. Nobody wants to deal with the consequences of owning what they did. And the consequences doesn't necessarily have to be a punishment from your parent. The consequences is feeling that responsibility, feeling that full brunt of shouldering your responsibility. I broke it. I had that incident happen. I did it. And then the tears come with your child, the shame comes with your child, all of that. And there's a way of stepping into that responsibility. Yes, I broke it, and I'm sorry for what I did, and I'll do better next time. And so that's one of the things that we teach our children, that, and we can model it ourselves as well. Yes, I did XYZ. I am going to do better next time. And if you plan on getting into another relationship, if you plan on getting married again, if you plan on having more children, you are in the mindset of growing. And so this is one of the steps into growing into that mindset of, I apologize. I acknowledge what I did. I acknowledge what happened. And I take responsibility for the things that I did. And I can step into growing and committing to doing better next time. So,
Yeah, and something I want to iterate is that this isn't a tool to use that's saying that to beat yourself up, right? That's not the purpose of this. This isn't to say, I should have done this, I could have done that, like, and put yourself in a position where you start beating yourself up, because that's really one of the worst things you can do. You're already doing that. If you're kind of in like a victim mindset, you're kind of already doing that to yourself. But what this really is about is whatever the situation happened, right? And say you were a victim of something. We all become victims of things throughout our life. And acknowledging that that happened and that it hurt you, and that, you know, you went through something. Yes, you did. Now you get to choose you get to decide what you do next. You get to recognize, what did you decide in those moments, right? And what you get to decide moving forward. It brings you back a self-power. It brings you back a belief that you have control of what happens in your life, as opposed to life just happening to you. It really is empowering when you can start to realize that, you know, even through those traumatic moments or those hard moments, you still had choices and decisions that you made, that could have amounted to something different. And doesn't mean that you should have, doesn't mean that you that oh my God, beat myself up. That's what I should have done. No, it just gets to show you that throughout life, today, future, there's decisions that you get to make that can completely change how your life turns out. And you start to realize that those moments, those stories that you tell yourself begin to lose its power, and it just
Mm,
becomes a story again. It doesn't
right.
become anything more because you have that self belief and realize that, you know, I'm not a passenger to these kind of moments anymore. I'm the person driving where I'm going. What am I avoiding? What am I steering to?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that can be very, very empowering and start the path of healing.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've gone through this, we've kind of discussed it a bit. And when we were able to do this, these stories we would tell ourselves began to stop holding its power on us. And
Right.
eventually it was like, we really have no reason to tell ourselves these stories anymore or tell people these stories anymore
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't serve us in any kind of way. We've healed from it and we're able to move past it. And when you're able to do that, that's when things really start to open up
Right.
um,
Right.
for yourself. So that's taking that responsibility of owning what you've done and also acknowledging that you have the choice in what you do moving forward. You get to
Mm-hmm.
decide what you do moving forward in every scenario.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Awesome. Well said. And so, one of the things that also would support in this module of acknowledging your hurt and allowing yourself to heal is to heal. Allowing yourself to forgive yourself and to forgive the other person. It doesn't have to be either or. You can forgive yourself and forgive the other person, or you can choose to only forgive yourself, or you can choose to only forgive the other person. But I believe that allowing yourself to heal is extremely important. Um, One of the things that we have recognized is when you hold on to the hurt and you do not allow yourself to heal, that stops your progress and your growth as a co-parent and as a person. And you're holding on to a grudge that is holding you back. And one of the visuals that we talk about is it's like you're carrying a backpack and it's filled with rocks. And all of those rocks is a grudge or a hurt that somebody has bestowed upon you, and you're holding on to that hurt and you're just carrying it with you. And as soon as you put the backpack down, it gets so much lighter in your path, in your growth.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great analogy. I love that
right.
analogy.
And it I could easily talk to Junior and throw in his face all the things that he did wrong to me. We can talk about this. We can talk about that. Like, you did this, you did that, yada yada yada. And at the end of the day, we're not together anymore. We're not married anymore. There is no purpose to bringing the past into his life or throwing those into his face, because it's not going to progress into anything. It might feel good for me. It might feel good to say all these ugly things to Junior and, throw that in his face like, oh, look at what you did and look what you used to do and look at what you're doing now. And it's just going to be a moment of satisfaction, but it's essentially not going to support your co-parenting relationship or support you in your healing process. So you get to allow yourself to let that go, forgive yourself, forgive the other party, and continue to move forward in that healing process. And it like Junior was saying, this isn't us saying to swallow down the hurt or to or to push your feelings to the side. What happened sucks. What happened was hurtful. What the other party did to you and what you did to them was not okay, and it gets to be clean moving forward. but you get to ask yourself, how long am I going to punish them for what they did? And also, how long am I going to punish myself?
Yeah. So speaking on forgiveness, forgiveness is extremely powerful. Um, and I think if you're unable to forgive yourself, I don't think you can actually really truly heal. Because you're just going to be holding on to that, all the things you did wrong, all the things that the person that you weren't living up to, or whatever fault that that you're living with. If you can't forgive yourself, then how are you ever going to heal and move forward? And I wanted to give you guys a definition of forgive from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. It defines it as to cease to feel resentment against. So to cease to feel resentment against, and that could be yourself, against yourself. It could be against your co-parent. It could be against your kids. It could be against your work, your living situation. It could be all of that. But ceasing to feel resentment towards those things can be a very liberating thing. And I think when I really think of forgiveness, it's not about what you're doing, something for yourself. You are offering forgiveness to somebody, but it is for yourself, because that is what allows you to bring peace back into your life. It is what allows you not to hold on to these resentments and these angers. And I was thinking about, like, can you forgive? Can you heal a relationship with someone without forgiving them? And I was kind of like, this was going on in my head for a while. Like, and I started to think, okay, can I forgive myself? Can I heal myself without forgiving myself? And I was like, there's no way. There's no way I can heal without forgiving myself. And then I started thinking, okay, can you heal without forgiving someone else? And I think to a certain extent, like, kind of, right? Because if you think about it, right, you can heal without, like, with getting removing somebody from your life, right? And you get a certain amount of healing from that. Cool, this person's not in my life anymore. Don't have to deal with them. And you can start to get healing from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you come across those people, more often than not, you're probably going to react in a manner of shit. Or you're going to be thinking all those old feelings of old traumas and history are going to come back up again. And it's going to hurt, or you're going to relive, or you're going to avoid, or you're going to resent, or all that stuff can all come back up again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think true forgiveness, you don't even have to, it's the ability to see that person, even if they're not in your life again. It's the ability to see that person, acknowledge that they're there and say, yeah, I'm good. I don't have to feel any way towards them. I don't have to like them.
Right.
I don't have to love them.
Right.
I don't even have to be their friend. But it is a thing that, cool, there they are. And you know what? I wish them well. And I'll keep going my path, and they'll keep going their path, and not allowing it to really get hold of you. And it also opens up a space to, if you want to keep a relationship or rekindle a relationship, it opens up a space to allow that to happen, right?
Right.
And it's coming from a clean space. It's not coming from I'm holding on to this. So that's really what forgive. And man, the healing in that is so crazy. That's real healing. So when I was thinking, like, can you forgive someone? Can you heal without forgiving someone? I don't think you're actually really healing. You're just kind of pushing it off, right? Until you can actually unexpectedly come see these people and nothing happens, and you just wish them well and you feel good and at peace with yourself. I feel like that's true healing. That's
Mm.
true forgiveness. And that is way easier said than done. Um,
Absolutely.
that has to be a conscious effort.
Hmm.
And it has to be something that's almost like cyclical. I feel like forgiveness is sorry. Forgiveness is a skill, and it's something you have to exercise and in order to be better at it. And you have to practice it.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, it's
um,
definitely a tool that we get to work on during our sessions, and you will work on them throughout the entirety of your time with us. And I hope you hear this when we say forgiveness is helpful in your healing. We're not asking you to forget what has happened, because
mhm.
those are two very separate things. And so, am I going to completely become oblivious to the hurt that happened and act like, oh, they're just this wonderful person and we're going to be best friends and I forgave them and, etc.? That's not what we're implementing at all. We're simply saying allow the forgiveness and the healing to happen. Do you get to remember what occurred to prepare yourself going forward? Yes. Those are, and remember, those
Those
are
are different
two.
things.
Yeah, those are two different practices, and people today seem to mesh those together. In order for me to forgive, I have to forget what they did. No. In order for you to forgive, you get to allow yourself to heal and to move forward without holding on to that resentment. So, and
Yes.
so our special guest, Eduardo, is actually going to be talking to us a little bit about what that looked like for him in his co-parenting relationship, and how that shows up. What does it do to hold them back as co-parents, and how is it looking currently? And so we're going to hear from Eduardo.
I would like Eduardo's viewpoint of that. If that
Mm.
is a great place, do you think that you have to forgive in order to heal? I just kind of want to pick your head of what you think that means, like forgiving to heal. Do you have to forgive your co-parent, or is it you having to forgive yourself? Um, because that can go very many different ways. So I kind of want to get like where you feel that means. Um,
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that there can be there can be no forgiveness without awareness. Awareness both of what it is that the injury was, on either direction, and the impact that it had on both parties. Um, because in order for me to ask for forgiveness, give forgiveness, I need to know what the agent is. I need to know what it is that I'm trying to address. What's the root of the pain? Whether it was a word, whether it was an action, whether it was a broken commitment, or something like that. So, um, for me to be able to kind of truly release those chains, that are created by the injury, I have to know what those chains are, or at least I have to acknowledge what it is that I'm feeling. So, um, in terms of my own journey, I know that the I know that in terms of my own journey, I know that for me, it was necessary to forgive, uh, primarily myself, and then my co-parent, my ex-wife. I think primarily myself first, because only I know only I can hold myself accountable to the ways that I didn't show up at my best as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as someone who once made a promise, right? A big promise at that. And so I can't really judge her because I don't know to what extent she lived up to her maximum potential or not. I know that I didn't live up to my maximum potential. So ultimately, I judge myself hardest because I know what I'm capable of. I know the quality of man that I can be and that I am, and I know where how far I missed the mark. So allow myself to forgive myself, forgiving myself was necessary at first, and then in the process, also acknowledging that um, you know we both probably could have done better, probably could have done a lot better. Acknowledging that she, like me, maybe felt that we did the best we could with what we had at the time, or maybe she doesn't. But either way, for me to hold on to any kind of energy around the relationship or the way the relationship ended, it was like I was carrying it on me. And if I carried that energy, those stories with me, I wasn't, number one, everything that I did felt heavier. And number two, I can't create a space where I allow others into my space, into my life, if I keep carrying these rocks around. And so I think that in order to allow a space for other people to come in, I had to let go. I got to let go of whatever resentment, whatever resistance, whatever pain, whatever stories I had about myself and around her. And I think most importantly, for me, one of the most important parts of that journey was to allow myself to grieve. Grieve that with the divorce, it was the death of a dream. Since I was very little, I always wanted a house, I always wanted a wife, and I always wanted children. Those are the three things that I knew that I knew that I knew that I always wanted. And I had an idea of what that was going to look like. And for a second, I had it all. And then when I chose to end up relationship, or when we chose to end the relationship, it was the death of a dream, and it was the death of, uh, uh, um, yeah, it was the death of a dream, and it got to be buried, and it got to be mourned appropriately, and then open up a space for something new to grow from that space. Thankfully, there were beautiful things that remained alive from that relationship, my children, and a lot of connections that I made, and a lot of lessons that I learned. But I know that I had to grieve the end of that relationship in order to uh, allow myself to think that I could still have that, even though it didn't look the way that I originally imagined.
Yeah, I mean, that's really awesome that you said that. Allowing yourself to grieve for the end of a relationship, a dream, um, almost like a way of life, or even like an expectation. Um, like actually putting that to rest. And I love that you brought that up because yeah, it's a really big thing. And when you think about like that, just makes it when you're grieving for a lost one, a loved one, um, getting through that process and actually grieving it and feeling it and like is what is going to allow you to actually move on from it and allow yourself to move on from that relationship. And um so thank you for saying that. That's a great perspective.
Thank you for your share. And so we're going to move into the next part of our module. And one of the things that we are going to also talk about is what Junior and I call our core beliefs statements. And so this is actually a practice that happens in therapy. And so there are different kinds of therapy that happen when you go to a counselor. You can go to counseling for all kinds of things, and there are different methods that are used when you go to therapy. And you may not realize it because us as therapists, we know what we're implementing for you. And so one of the practices that gets utilized is called CBT. And so it is a cognitive behavioral therapy. And so in cognitive behavioral therapy, there are some core beliefs that can be helpful or unhelpful, and they can be neutral at times. And so whether you realize it or not, some of the core beliefs that get influenced on you are unhelpful, and sometimes they're neutral, but most times they're unhelpful. And so whenever you hear somebody calling you unworthy, ungrateful, um, you're a deadbeat dad, you are neglectful to your children, you are not helpful, you are insupportive, those are our core beliefs that are unhelpful for you as a person. And so, one of the things that we will support you in is utilizing core beliefs that you know to be true, and you get to say them to yourself. And in therapy, it becomes such a great tool because you hear it, your heart hears it, and then you start to implement it. And so they talk about this in pop culture also, believe it or not. And so it really is a great universal tool. And so one of the things that Junior and I practice is giving ourselves those core belief statements of I am a vulnerable, loving, authentic, worthy woman. And so saying those things to ourselves, remembering that I am worthy, remembering that I am strong, remembering that I am loving, remembering all of these things that are empowering to me and help me get up in the day, but also help me remember that I am not this horrible, ugly, neglectful, unloving, unsupportive mom, that I'm actually all of these other things. And so Ronnie also practices that as well, don't you?
I do this daily. I do this multiple times a day. I do this and the great thing about this is that this is great for co-parenting, but it's also great for anything. Like if I'm laying in bed and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to go to the gym, I will ask myself, "Are you a motivated, fit, like healthy man?" And like I'll ask myself that question, and depending on how I respond, depends on if I go to the gym. But
Mm-hmm.
it challenges myself to think like, am I this person? And every time I ask myself that, I'm like, yeah, I am. I am
Mm-hmm.
definitely a motivated, healthy, like physically good looking man. And it gets me out of bed and it gets me motivated to go work out.
Mm.
But gosh, I use this so it sets you up. And in a
Right.
minute, we're going to share what Eduardo shared with us, which is extremely powerful of how he utilizes it. But for me, like I would tell myself, I am a bold, joyful, gentle, creative man, and saying that to myself just primes me with how I interact with my kids,
Mm.
what I want to create that day. And it makes me a step out of my comfort zones, right? Like that boldness, I know I can be very, very bold, but when I re-emphasize that with myself, uh, it gets me in that state of mind and it feels so good.
Right.
So practicing this daily and figuring out what are those things that are your core beliefs that you can lean on to get you through days, get you through arguments, get you through self speak, or whatever loud noises coming at you that you don't have control of. Um,
Right.
these core belief statements can go so far for you and help with healing. So I think with that, I say we play the clip of Eduardo and how he utilizes it for himself.
Let's go. So, like, for me, my follow up question to that would be what is it like to have a co parent that hasn't healed and hasn't forgiven and hasn't moved forward?
it's a constant exercise. It's a constant exercise in the only thing I have control is my thoughts, my feelings, and my choices. And so, yeah, it's daily, it's constant. That there's a lot of things that I don't get to control. Um, but what I can control, I will. What I what is my choice, I will act on that choice. It's a constant reminder of being grounded and remembering who I am and who I'm not, remembering who I am and who, not necessarily who I was, but what I'm no longer, those things. So it's constantly coming back to the present, constantly remembering my values, my qualities, my daily choices, and that no matter what the other person or the other people's choices are, um, that is not an excuse for me to play a game below the level that I know I can play.
The question that I have for you is just like, so you're talking about like when you get in these moments of these frustration moments, repeating to yourself who you are. Why is that so significant? Why does that help so much?
One of the main ways in which it supports me is that it counters the voices that um, are sometimes present in my own mind, right? That sometimes there's a part of my mind that remembers
Mm-hmm.
the way I used to be, or the way that I used to show up in life, the choices that I used to make. And whenever there's conflict, or whenever there is people around me in my life, whether it's people at work, people in my social circle, people in my family, or other people around, it's like they know my buttons and they know how to, because they've seen me over my lifetime. So they know, they've seen the worst of me and maybe they've seen the best of me.
So
And
you're talking about people who've seen you, in an old version of yourself.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And or they have seen a version of myself in the past, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
version that they have in their mind of who I was.
I
And
gotcha.
so when they push the buttons, when they want to engage in an emotional battle, or when they want to just enter into conflict, oftentimes that's what they will do, is they will talk to me as if they're talking to the me of the past, or they're talking to an earlier version of me, or they simply just love to push my buttons and reminding myself who I am now in the present. It's a counter to those voices, because there's
I
a
see.
part of me that is like, yeah, no, they're right. And the reality is that they're right in their perception of me in the past, right?
Right.
And so it's just to counter voices is like a counter force to remain grounded, so that I don't get shaken when all this storm is happening. It also reminds me to celebrate my greatness. It reminds me to honor the best choices that I've made, or the better choices that I made and that I continue to make, so that I don't limit myself to only the worst choices in my life, so that I don't measure myself against the worst version of myself, but I measure myself against the best version of myself. And somewhere in between lies the truth, right?
Hmm.
Um, and frankly,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just to quiet the voices,
Yeah.
because it can be so distracting,
Yeah.
it can be so hurtful, that
Mm-hmm.
just listening to that positive, to that soothing voice in myself, just quiets down the external noise and allows me to breathe until I'm able to catch my feet and then figure out what to do next.
All right. So I think that was such a beautiful share, and thank you, Eduardo, for tapping into your vulnerability and allowing us to see different side of you. And so you can see yourself that it's a struggle, right? Like it's not every day we are chipper, and every
Oh
day is
gosh.
awesome, and like Junior and I still have moments where we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I still get on Junior's nerves. I'm sure there are some things that might still trigger, and the way that we approach those things is different, which is actually a great segue into our next part, which is having the ability to use I statements. And so in our conversations with each other, we get to have a very honest conversation with each other. We're very open in the way that we talk with each other. We have an open mindset with the way that we talk with each other and the way that we receive those those conversations, the way that we receive the communication from the other side. And so when we use I statements, when we say that, we're coming from I. I'm not saying you did this and you did that, or we're doing this and we're doing that. I feel like you're not respecting me. I am choosing to ignore you at the moment, and I am not in the mood to talk to you.
Yeah, or
And
even just I feel disrespected.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that's such a simple thing to say, and like, oh, damn, okay, like, and
Mm-hmm.
that gets the other person thinking, like, okay, it immediately brings it kind of stops that defensiveness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so when somebody's saying, "I feel this way," I feel
Mm-hmm.
disrespected. I feel hurt right now. I feel um, like our relationship is hurting me. Like that is very different than you are hurting me. Or even saying I choose to uh limit my interaction with you, like with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing to limit my interaction.
Yeah.
Like that's very powerful also. it
Mm-hmm.
it also doesn't it kind of brings things back to yourself as opposed to getting the other person in a defensive posture. um
Right.
and
And
then it's
I
also very easy to say your wants and needs. I
right.
need this, I want
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear for that other person to then see, okay, this is what this person wants, and it's not a you need to do this, you need to do that, or
Right.
I want you to do this. um yeah,
But
it's a very different come from.
and I also want to or implement this as well, is in these conversations of I whenever I speak to Junior and I tell him what I'm feeling, what I am doing, what I'm wanting, what I'm needing, etc. I am coming from I. Junior gets to decide if he's
Yes.
going to react, if he's going to shift, if he's going to support, or if he's just going to listen. Like, all right, this is how you feel. Cool, you feel disrespected. I didn't do anything to disrespect you, but that's how you feel disrespected. Okay. Or you can choose, like, oh, I can see how, yeah, I guess I came off a little disrespectful. Okay. Yeah, maybe I need to shift this. It could go either way. Either way, you can choose to take responsibility, or you can choose to, okay, that's how you're feeling.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I did anything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it gets to be like a both. And this is where the openness comes from, of because I could easily say, I feel disrespected. And if you're not open, Junior, if you're not
right.
ready to hear what I have to say, you could easily attack me. And
Sure.
then I go into defensiveness. And then it just
Right.
becomes a whole vicious cycle.
It does. And I think this is going to go into one of our future modules of communication. We're going to delve deeper into this with communication and kind of the things that doesn't work. Like obviously what she was saying, being open communication, being open to hearing the other side's point of view is extremely important, because if you're not and somebody attacks you, it can definitely lead to a vicious cycle, like as you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And this is where you see responsibility also steps in too. I'm feeling disrespected. I'm not saying you disrespected me.
right. You're
Ronnie,
owning
right.
your
Right.
yeah.
And Junior might not even realize that what he said was disrespectful, which has happened. There
Mm-hmm.
have been times where I've told him, like, I feel like you're just ignoring what I'm saying. Like, you've cut me off several times. You're not letting me say my piece, or, and then Junior's like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Okay. Yeah, no, I can see how that came off disrespectful. And so then, like, Junior acknowledges what happened, doesn't necessarily have to take ownership for what he did or didn't do, but he acknowledged how I feel or how
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing to feel. And then we work together from there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, great. I think our kind of our next thing really is really that's super powerful, and something that we did with each other on one of our episodes is co-parent strengths.
mm-hmm,
I think in order to heal, you have to build yourself back up.
mm-hmm,
Um, and a part of building yourself back up is recognizing your strengths.
mm-hmm.
Um, and when you're able to recognize it for yourself, that can be so powerful, because that
Right.
is honestly it can be one of the more difficult things to do if you are not focusing on what your strengths are, or you're not doing this positive self-talk. um, it can be very difficult to acknowledge what your strengths are, but when you do, when you actually search out for what they are,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you're like, no, I am a gentleman, like, and I am a loving and caring man, and I'm a very forgiving man. Like those kinds of things can like really help boost your confidence and really help build you up. And if you're doing that for your co-parent also, right? Like if you're acknowledging and seeing what their strengths are, it
Right.
sheds a different life on that person too. And it helps
Mm-hmm.
with, you know, with that forgiveness. It helps with moving past some of that hurt and moving past that trauma. It starts to kind of build momentum to getting past those things. And it's also, again, is something that is a practice. So that is one thing that we will be discussing is, what are your co-parent strengths? What is your other co-parent strengths? um, that way we can explore that and start moving forward with those strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And Nessa, I'll leave you open to share anything you have on strengths, and then we'll play, a clip from Eduardo, which was beautifully said, so heartfelt. So, do you have anything else to say on co-parent strengths?
No, no, I think that's great. I think what you said was amazing. I agree. When you talk about your strengths and when you are able to remember your co-parent strengths,
Yeah.
and we're going to see here in a minute the way that Eduardo gets to do that. And it's a great reminder of the person on the other side of that argument is a human being, and you're
Mm-hmm.
both trying your best.
Yep.
All right, so here we go. So, what would you say some of your strengths are as a co-parent?
Me and my ex-wife, what our strengths are as co-parents.
Yours, just yours.
My strengths as a co-parent
Yeah,
in both sets of parenting relationships.
sure.
I'm a constant learner. I am. I think I'm one of the. I'm one of the few people in the not few, but yeah, there's not that many, and I'm one of the people in the world that I'm willing to say, you know what, it's a better point than mine. that actually is a better perspective, and uh, I get to work something different. So that's one of the things is I don't presume to be the smartest. I don't presume to be the most experienced. And I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly seeking for ways to improve, particularly when I'm not getting the results that I want. If I'm not getting the results that I want, then uh, eventually I will do something different. Nowadays, much faster than before. Um, Secondly, I'm willing to be honest with how I'm feeling. If there are times with the children or with the co-parents that I am uh, in my muck, in my stuff, I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to say, you know what, I am so angry at a child, a 3-year-old child, and this is why. I think that that helps me, that supports me, because at the very least it lets other people know and it lets me know this is where I'm starting from. And most often than I'm not, I'll finish that sentence by saying, and I know it's like stupid for me to be feeling this way.
Yeah. But I
Or
mean,
I know it sounds ridiculous, and this is just where I am.
no, I mean, I think it's great that you're modeling that you can identify your emotions and that you allow yourself to have those emotions. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And then
there are people out there who get upset and angry with 3-year-olds. I think everybody who has children has probably been in that position at some point.
I was gonna say, if you haven't gotten mad at a 3-year-old at least once, you're lying. You're lying.
You're a parenting.
yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's it. And I'd say those are my top two.
Okay, fair enough. And so, if you could identify strengths of your ex-wife in your co-parenting relationship with her, what would those be?
I would say she really believes, and I believe that she believes this, that she really believes that every choice she makes is for the betterment of the children. That she is, I mean, I believe in her heart of hearts, she's doing her best based on her set of sunglasses, her perspective, and she will fight tooth and nail to ensure that the children are protected in the way that she believes they should be and ought to be protected. Um, so, she's a fierce mom. And although I disagree with a lot of things, a lot of choices, um, I do believe that she believes she's giving in her best. Um, she's extremely resourceful, extremely creative, and her mind is always working. She will always have another plan. And should something happen to me, or should have something happen to the children's support system, I know that they're in great hands with her, um, and I know that they'll be loved without a question. Um, she will sacrifice herself for them in a heartbeat, um, and they really are special to her. Um, yeah, I admire her fierceness.
That's awesome.
So,
That's great.
thank you for that, Eduardo. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's one of the in our module. That would be one of the things that we would support her co-parenting in their healing process. Because one of the things that co-parents tend to forget is that at some point in your life you loved one another, and at some point in your life you were both on the same team, and you were both had the same goal in mind, the same life that you planned or you saw for yourself. And when we, go through breakups or divorce or arguments or whatever that looks like, people tend to forget their why, the reason why they had children to begin with, and their reason for fighting as much as they do. It's because of their children, right? And so, one of the things that we get to remember is, even though the other side can be very difficult, sometimes they're always difficult, sometimes they're difficult every once in a while. Just remembering those strengths that we see in our counterpart, can sometimes help us get through those difficult times and help us remember, I'm doing this, for our children, for my children. So thank you for your vulnerability, Eduardo, and sharing that side. All right. So, like we said, that was such a beautiful share that we got to experience with Eduardo. And I think that goes to show that even when you're in the grit and when you're in the ruck, when you're in the nastiness of co-parenting and you're still not amicable, you can still find yourselves able to recognize strength in others as well as strengths in yourselves. And that might even lower your defensiveness and help bring you
Mm-hmm.
guys both onto the same page, and remembering that you're here for your kids and you both are doing the best that you can. And so keep working towards being on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
All
And
right.
so I think that's the wraps up our episode. But I also wanted to thank Eduardo for jumping on with us and being a part of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that we're leaving out, but it was great to interview him and ask him some questions, get his insight. Eduardo is a very charismatic, knowledgeable. He's a great man in himself. So appreciate our co-parenting relationship that we have with Eduardo, and I mean he's your husband, so. Uh,
Yeah. No, what I'll say is no, thank you, Eduardo, for coming on and being vulnerable with us and sharing a part of you that not a lot of people get to see. A
yeah.
lot of people in Eduardo's life get to see his professional side, his charismatic side, his loving side, his father side, his fun side. But not a lot of people have gotten the opportunity to see the side that is still hurting, and that is still very vulnerable. And
Mm-hmm.
so, thank you, Eduardo, for coming on the podcast with us and sharing your experiences. And we hope that with other co parents like Eduardo in his position, we can continue supporting co parents and parents alike, and helping everybody heal and making our community better.
Heck yeah.
All
Love it.
right. So, we ready to have a dance off? Dance
Dance
party?
party. Let's
Dance
go.
off. I think dance off.
uh, so much fun. We'll see you guys next week.